Good morning, boys and girls. This week we're going to do Flora and Ulysses a little bit differently. I'm going to just do one recording of reading several chapters, and you can choose your stopping place. Underneath each day, I will post what chapter and what pages to do in your workbook, but for this video, it's just going to be all the chapters for the whole week, and you decide when you stop, okay? We left off on chapter 16, and it is called Victims of Extended Hallucinations. It was not her father at the door. It was Tootie. Tootie Tickman, said Flora. Tootie stepped through the door and into the living room, and then she stopped. Her eyes widened. What in the world, she said. Flora didn't even bother turning around. She knew what Tootie was looking at. That's the little shepherdess, said Flora, the guardian of the lost sheep and light, or something. She belongs to my mother. Right, said Tootie. She shook her head. Well, never mind about the lamp. She took another step closer to Flora. Where's the squirrel? She whispered. Upstairs, Flora whispered back. I've come to check to see if what I think happened yesterday actually happened, or if I'm the victim of an extended hallucination. Flora looked Tootie into the eyes. She said, Ulysses can type. Who can type? Said Tootie. The squirrel. He's a superhero. Tootie said, for heaven's sakes, what kind of superhero types? It was a good and also slightly disturbing point. Who exactly was a typing squirrel going to fight villains? How exactly was a typing squirrel going to fight villains and change the world? George, shouted Flora's mother. It's not Pop, Flora shouted back. It's Mrs. Tickman. There was a silence from the kitchen. Then Flora's mother came into the living room with a big fake adult smile plastered on her face. Mrs. Tickman, she said, what a lovely surprise. What can we do for you? Tootie smiled a big fake adult smile back. Oh, she said, I just came to pay Flora a visit. Who? Flora, said Tootie. Your daughter? Really? Said Flora's mother. You came to see Flora? I'll be right back, said Flora. She ran out of the living room and through the dining room. What a truly extraordinary lamp, she heard Tootie say. Oh, do you like it, said Flora's mother. Ha, thought Flora. And then she was out of the dining room and into the kitchen. She ripped the paper out of the typewriter and looked down at the words. They were absolutely not a hallucination. Holy bagumba, said Flora. A loud scream echoed through the house. Flora took the paper and shoved it down the front of her pajamas and ran back into the living room. Ulysses was sitting at the top of Mary Ann, or rather, he was trying to sit atop of Mary Ann. His feet were scrabbling and to gain purchase on the little shepherdess' pink-flowered lampshade. He paused in his efforts and looked at Flora in an apologetic and hopeful way, and then he returned to wobbling back and forth. Oh, my goodness, said Tootie. How did it get in here, said Flora's mother. It just came flying down the stairs. Yes, said Tootie. She gave Flora a meaningful look. Flying? It absolutely scared the living daylights out of me and Miss Tickman. We screamed. We did, said Tootie. We screamed. There's just no end to the excitement. If that squirrel breaks my lamp, I don't know what I'll do. Mary Ann is very precious to me. Mary Ann, said Tootie. I'll just get him off the lamp, okay, said Flora. She put out a hand. Don't touch it, screamed her mother. It has a disease. The doorbell, as if it were echoing Flora's mother's advice, buzzed its terrible warning buzz. Flora and her mother and Tootie all turned. A small voice called out. The voice said, Great Aunt Tootie? Chapter 17, I Smell Squirrel. There was a boy at the door. He was short, and his hair was so blonde that it looked almost white. His eyes were hidden behind enormous dark glasses. In addition to Terrible Things Can Happen to You, the illuminated adventures of the amazing Incandesto regularly featured a second bonus comic entitled The Criminal Element is Among Us. The criminal element gave very specific pointers on how to never ever be fooled by a criminal. In one of the oft-repeated dictums of the criminal element was that the best way to get to know a person was to look him directly in the eye. Flora tried to look the boy in the eye, but all she saw was a reflection of herself in his dark glasses. She looked short and uncertain, like an accordion in pajamas. "William," said Tootie, "I told you to stay put." "I heard screaming," said the boy. His voice was high and thin. "I was concerned. I came as fast as I could. Unfortunately, on the way over here, I had a small but extremely violent encounter with some variety of shrub, and now I'm bleeding." I forgot about this part. "I think I'm bleeding. I'm pretty sure I smell blood, but no one should be certain. Please don't overreact." "This," said Tootie, "is my nephew." "Great nephew," said the boy, "and I hope I don't need stitches. Do you think I need stitches?" "His name is William," said Tootie. "William Spifer, actually," said Tootie's nephew. "I prefer to be called William Spifer. It distinguishes me from the multiplicity of Williams in the world." He smiled. "It's a pleasure to meet you, whoever you are. I would shake your hand, but as I said, I think I'm bleeding. Also, I'm blind." "You are not blind," said Tootie. "I am suffering from a temporary blindness induced by trauma," said William Spifer. Temporary blindness induced by trauma. The word sent a chill down Flora's spine. Seemingly there was no end to the things that could go wrong with the human beings. Why hadn't Terrible Things Can Happen to You done an issue on temporary blindness induced by trauma, or, for that matter, one on extended hallucinations? "I am temporarily blind," said William Spifer again. "How unfortunate," said Flora's mother. Here's a picture of it. "He's not blind," said Tootie, "but as of this morning he is staying with me for the summer. Imagine my surprise and excitement." "I have nowhere else to go, Great Aunt Tootie," said William Spifer. "I know that. I am at the mercy of wind's fate." "Oh," said Flora's mother. She clapped her hands. "How wonderful. A little friend for Flora." "I don't need a little friend," said Flora. "Of course you do," said her mother. She turned to Tootie. "Flora is very lonely. She spends far too much time reading comics. I've tried to break her of the habit, but I'm very busy with my novel writing, and she is alone a lot. I'm worried that it has made her strange." "I'm not strange," said Flora. This seems like a safe statement to make when someone is truly profoundly strange, as William Spifer was standing beside her. "I would be happy to be your friend," said William Spifer. "Honored," he bowed. "How lovely," said Flora's mother. "Yes," said Flora, "how lovely." "The blind," said William Spifer, "even the temporarily blind, have an excellent sense of smell." "Oh, for heaven's sake," said Tootie, "here we go. I have to tell you that I smell something out of the ordinary, something that is not usually smelled within the confines of a human domestic sphere," said William Spifer. He cleared his throat. "I smell squirrel." Squirrel. Confronted with the spectacle of William Spifer, they had forgotten about Ulysses. Flora and her mother and Tootie all turned and looked at Ulysses. He was still on top of Marianne. He had managed to balance himself on the small blue and green globe and was at the center of the lampshade. "That squirrel," said Flora's mother. "He is rabid, diseased. Here we go." Chapter 18. A Scientific Adventure. "Why don't you let me take that squirrel?" Tootie said to Flora's mother. "I'll just return him to the wild." "If you can call the backyard the wild," said William Spifer. "Hush up, William," said Tootie. She reached out for Ulysses. "Don't touch it," shrieked Flora's mother. "Not without gloves. It has some sort of disease." "If you could just get some gloves then," said Tootie. "I'll pluck the squirrel off the lampshade and whisk him out of here and set him free. The kids can come along. It will be a scientific adventure." "It doesn't sound very scientific to me," said William Spifer. "Well," said Flora's mother, "I don't know. Flora Belle's father is coming to pick her up for their Saturday visit. He'll be by here any minute now, and she's still in her pajamas." "Flora Belle?" said William Spifer. "What a lovely melodious name." "It will all take just a minute," said Tootie in a low, soothing voice. "The kids can get to know each other." "I'll get you some gloves," said Flora's mother. And so now, here they were, walking over to Tootie's getting to know each other, or something. Tootie had on a pair of dishwashing gloves that went all the way up to her elbows. The gloves were bright pink, and they glowed in a cheery, radioactive sort of way. In Tootie's gloved hands was Ulysses. Behind Tootie was Flora, and next to Flora was William Spifer. His left hand rested on her shoulder. "Do you mind, Florabelle?" he had said. "Would it trouble you terribly if I put my hand on your shoulder and allow you to guide me back to Great Aunt Tootie's house? The world is a treacherous place when you can't see." Flora didn't bother pointing out to him that the world was a treacherous place when you could see. And speaking of treacherous, things were not in any way progressing as Flora had planned. She had envisioned Ulysses fighting crime, criminals, villainy, darkness, treachery. She had imagined him flying holy bagumba through the world with her, Flora Buckman, at his side. Instead, here she was leading a temporarily blind boy through her own backyard. It was anticlimactic, to say the least. "Have you released the squirrel yet, Great Aunt Tootie?" "No," said Tootie, "I have not." "Why do I sense that there is more going on here than meets the eye?" said William Spicer. "Just keep quiet until we get back to the house, William," said Tootie. "Can you do that? Keep quiet for a minute?" "Of course I can," said William Spicer. He sighed. "I am an old pro at keeping quiet." Flora doubted very much that this was true. William Spicer squeezed her shoulder. "May I inquire how old you are, Florabelle?" "Don't squeeze my shoulder." "I'm 10. "I am 11 years old," said William Spicer, "which surprises me, I must say. I feel much, much older than 11. Also, I know for a fact that I am much smaller than your average 11-year-old. It may even be that I'm shrinking. Excess trauma can retard growth." Retard means slow. "I am not certain, however, for it can cause actual shrinkage. What was the traumatic event that turned you blind?" said Flora. "I'd prefer not to discuss it right now. I don't want to alarm you." "It's not possible to alarm me," said Flora. "I'm a cynic. Nothing in human nature surprises a cynic." "So you say," said William Spicer. The word cynic popped into Flora's head. It was preceded by the word unnecessarily. Unnecessarily cryptic. Oh, wait. What? Back up. "It's not possible to alarm me," said Flora. "I'm a cynic. Nothing in the human nature surprises a cynic." "So you say," said William Spicer. The word cryptic popped into Flora's head. It was preceded by the word unnecessarily. "Unnecessarily cryptic," said Flora out loud. "I beg your pardon," said William Spicer. But then they were at Tootie's house. They were walking through her backyard into the kitchen, which smelled like bacon and lemons. Tootie put Ulysses down on the table. "I don't understand," said William Spicer. "We're back at your house, but I can still smell the squirrel." Flora took the paper out of her pajamas. She handed it to Tootie. She felt like a spy, a successful spy, a triumphant spy, alibite, a spy in pajamas. "What's this?" said Tootie. "It's proof that you aren't the victim of an extended hallucination," said Flora. Tootie held up the paper with both hands. She stared at it. "Squirtle," she said. "Squirtle?" said William Spicer. "Keep reading," said Flora. "Squirtle," said Tootie. "I am Ulysses, born anew." "See?" said Flora. "What does that prove?" said William Spicer. "What does it even mean?" "The squirrel's name is Ulysses," said Tootie. "Wait a minute," said William Spicer. "Are you positioning that a squirrel typed those words?" "Positioning? Positioning?" "Yes," said Flora. "That's exactly what I'm positioning. The hallucination extends," said Tootie. "What hallucination?" said William Spicer. "The squirrel as a superhero hallucination," said Tootie. "Seriously, you jest," said William Spicer, which means you joke. Ulysses sat up on his hind legs. He looked at William Spicer and then at Tootie, and finally he turned his eyes to Flora. He raised his eyebrows and gave her a look full of questions, full of hope. Flora felt a pang of doubt. He was, after all, just a squirrel. She had no proof that he was a superhero. What if there was some other explanation for those words? Also, there was Tootie's disturbing point to consider. What kind of superhero types? And then she thought about Alfred, how everyone doubted him, how no one except the parakeet Dolores knew that he was Incandesto, and how no one except Dolores truly believed in him. Was it Flora's job to believe in Ulysses? And what did that make her? A parakeet? "Let me get this straight," said William Spicer. "You, a self-professed cynic, are positioning that a squirrel is a superhero." The words, "do not hope, instead observe," flitted through Flora's brain. She took a deep breath. She brushed the phase away. "The squirrel typed those words," she said. Well, said William Spicer, whose hand is still on Flora's shoulder? Why didn't he move his hand? Let's just approach this scientifically. We'll put the squirrel in front of Great Aunt Tootie's computer, and we'll ask him to type. Again. Chapter 19. The Inadvertent One. He sat in front of the machine. It was different from Flora's mother's typewriter. There was a blank screen instead of paper, and the whole contraption glowed, emitting a warm but not entirely friendly smell.